Good day to you all, and thanks for joining us for our informative and hopefully valuable webinar on Windows Server 2012 and Microsoft VDI licensing. I'm Gary Burton and I'm part of the solutions team here at Environ. So if and when you have a requirement for a new or upgraded system or one of our technology services, we may well meet to discuss your solution. Environ have planned that you have the ability to watch this webinar in real time or as a recorded session, so to ask questions, please email me at info@environ.co.uk and myself or one of my colleagues will do our best to respond as soon as possible. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Sean Taylor, your key speaker for this event. Sean is a highly experienced Microsoft solution architect and well placed to describe the features on which this webinar is focused and answer your technical queries. Thank you, Sean, and over to you.
Thank you, Gary. So in this particular webinar, we're going to be looking at both Windows Server 2012 licensing and licensing for VDI solutions. So we're going to start with the Server 2012. There are significant changes. These changes have been designed in order to try and make the process more simple for both our partners and their end customers. It's designed to make it more economical on a use basis, or a per VM basis, if you calculate it all out, and is designed to integrate with Microsoft Cloud Strategy, so therefore it is cloud optimized. So that's the marketing slide out of the way. Server 2012 comes in 4 editions. Initially we're going to concentrate on the two on the left, so Data Center and Standard, and then we're going to finish off with Essentials and Foundation. So one thing you may be noticing is the fact that for those of you particularly familiar with Server 2008, Enterprise has actually disappeared. The reason for that is Microsoft will say trying to simplify it, but the big thing is there's now no difference from a functional point of view between Standard and Data Center. I've actually got a screen dump of that a little later on. The major difference is regarding virtualization and the amount of CPUs that you want to implement on your particular piece of hardware. So, Standard and Data Center to start off with. As we've said, 2 editions differentiate only by their virtualization rights. So Windows Server 2012 Data Center licenses the host and an unlimited amount of virtual machines, whereas the standard one licenses the host and 2 virtual machines. Those standard licenses are cumulative. So if you've got 3 or 4 virtual machines, you could actually buy multiple standard licenses. But again, you have to be aware of there is a multiplier here, and at a certain point, Data Center will become more cost effective. Now, even though these products are licensed on a processor basis, the server licenses still require client access licenses to be purchased for your users or devices. So as well as the standard and Data Center versions, you'll also need the CALs to go with it. As we've already said, common features across the editions, and again I've got a screenshot of that a little later on, but all features are in both versions of the product. So we're no longer in a scenario where you can only afford standard but you want clustering, which on Server 2008, unfortunately, you could have bought standard but you weren't going to get clustering. You needed Enterprise as a minimum in order to get at that particular functionality. So all of the hardware is architected the same, so we support the same number of CPUs, RAM, etc., across both versions of the product, and we're also in a situation where things like clustering is available in both editions. That's a fairly big change for Microsoft. Just to emphasise that, you might want to manage your Windows Server solution in the same way you can implement System Center to go with it. And for those of you who've seen the System Center licensing, you'll have already heard me going on about this, but they are designed to work hand in hand. And a rough rule of thumb is if you want System Center to provide the management of your Windows Server environment, then typically you apply the same version of the System Center license to the host as the Windows license that you've purchased. So if you've purchased Windows Server 2012 Standard, then System Center 2012 Standard is the one for you, whereas if you purchase Windows Server 2012 Data Center, then System Center 2012 Data Center is the version for you. And again, as some of you may have heard on one of the previous webinars, if you attended that, you can actually buy the two products combined as a single line item under what's referred to as the Core Infrastructure Suite. There is a slight discount on the combined price. So as we said, you've got the Core Infrastructure Suite, which is the one across the bottom, which is where most people will see their license purchase if they want to go down this route. For those of you who have large implementations, you can get a better discount off Microsoft by buying the enrollment for Core Infrastructure, which again combines the Windows Server and System Center licenses into a single line item. However, there is a minimum purchase, and that minimum purchase is 25 licenses. So again, you would need a reasonable sized infrastructure in order for that one to be the appropriate solution for you. For those of you with Server 2008 licenses with software assurance, there is of course a migration path. As we've said, Enterprise Edition has retired, as has Web Server, as has the High Performance Service HPC. The straightforward transition is if you've got Server 2008 Data Center, for every two of those you get one Server 2012 Data Center license, and that's because 2008 Data Center was an individual CPU purchase, but the minimum was two, and with the Data Center it includes two CPUs, so effectively they equate to the same thing. Standard, straightforward, one-to-one transition. Enterprise gave you the use rights for 4 virtual machines, whereas the new 2012 Standard only gives you 2 virtual machines. So therefore, for every 1 Enterprise, you get 2 Standard licenses. The Web Server Edition was a cut-down version of Server 2008 purely to run specific services, in this instance IIS. And it was significantly cheaper than any of the other products. So therefore, for every 2 of those, you get 1 standard license. And for your HPC stuff, that's again a one-to-one transition. You've also got, as we've said, the ability to combine the standard licenses in order to provide you with more virtual machine support. The pricing on there is US dollar list price under open. No level, so that's typically the most expensive price there is. And as you can see from there, you can apply 2 licenses to get 4 VMs, or you can apply 3 licenses to get 6 VMs. And again, 6 VMs tends to sort of be the cut-off, where we start to see it becoming more cost-effective and, to be honest, give you greater flexibility to go with the data center license. But there is also a transition from standard to data center via the step-up license if you want to go down that route. So if you decide that standard is not for you, you've actually got the ability to pay the step-up license and transition that to a data center license. So that's the standard and data center out of the way. Just to recap, 2 licenses, standard data center, host, 2 CPUs, and then the differentiator is the virtual machine rights. The other 2 editions, Essentials and Foundation, are very much for the lower end of the market. So Windows Server 2012 Essentials is the natural progression for Small Business Server, although some of you will not be particularly happy about that. Unfortunately, Small Business Server 2011 dies this year. From a licensing point of view, obviously the product is still within support, but you won't be able to buy new licenses as of the 31st of December this year. So the alternatives can be Windows Server 2012 Essentials. So this is a per server licenses, up to 2 CPUs. Maximum number of users is 25, using up to 2 devices each, so that's 50 devices. There are no virtualization rights. The Essentials server itself is either physically installed or is a virtual machine. You've also got the very, very basic entry level available through OEM from manufacturers such as Dell. Again, it's a per server license, one CPU, maximum 15 users, no virtualization rights, and again available through the OEM channel. The important thing, though, is for those of you out there that have got Small Business Server 2011, and if you've got software assurance, so there is a transition. SBS 2011 Essentials migrates pretty much directly into Server 2012 Essentials, so that's a one-to-one correlation. You've then got the retired editions, so SBS 2011 and SBS 2011 Premium Add-on. So SBS 2011 Standard, you get a one-to-one transition, so you're actually getting a reasonably good offering out of this in the fact that you've got Windows Server 2012 Standard plus Exchange Server Standard. You've then got SBS 2011 Premium Add-on, which gets you, again, a one-to-one relationship to Windows Server Standard and then SQL Standard on top of that. And you can renew your software assurance, which will get you new version rights on top of your Windows, Exchange and SQL versions. So if there was a new version after this, you would be able to upgrade that, providing you keep the software assurance in place. I mentioned earlier on that there's a feature comparison with regards to what's in the product. So as you can see from there, there is no difference between standard and data center. All of the features are in both of the products. We no longer differentiate between the versions of the product. What has got slightly limited capabilities are the two lower level versions of the product, which are Essentials and Foundation. So that completes the Windows Server 2012 licensing overview. We're now going to move on to the VDI solutions and look at the various different options that you can use. So there's never been more flexibility with regards to actually implementing and administering your VDI solution, whether that's looking at desktop virtualization with session hosts, or whether that's via a virtualization host with pooled or dedicated virtual machines. And in some instances it's a pretty straightforward admin process where you can set it up in half a dozen clicks, but the licensing is still reasonably complex. So we need to understand from a licensing point of view the actual endpoint device. So the endpoint device could be in-house, it could be external. We need to know whether that endpoint device is Windows powered or not. If it is Windows powered, the simplest and easiest way to get VDI rights is to add software assurance to that licensing purchase, and that automatically includes your VDI rights. If that device cannot have software assurance added to it, or is not a Windows powered device, such as a thin client, one of the Wise terminals for example, then the easiest way to do that is via a Windows VDA license. That gives you the rights in order to deploy and implement the VDI solution. The software assurance, there are many benefits of software assurance for Windows 8. The virtualization rights are just one. Obviously you get new version rights, you get the latest and greatest version of the Windows 8 operating system. There's your virtualization rights. You also get the roaming rights, so the ability to use it externally, the Windows to go. The MDOP and the Windows CSL are optional purchases, but there are also other benefits such as the TechNet benefits, the access to e-learning, the extended hotfix support, the free training vouchers to be redeemed against global knowledge or QA, 24/7 support. You also get use of the Microsoft Planning Deployment Services, which Environ will shortly be accredited to deliver. So there's lots of benefits of software assurance other than just your virtualization rights. One thing to note for those of you who like to purchase through OEM, software assurance can be added to an OEM purchase provided it's done within the first 90 days. We've then got the VDA license. The VDA license is a subscription model, so unfortunately those of you wanting a perpetual license, you can't do that. You will need to renew this on an annual basis. And the VDA license basically gives me the ability to license thin clients, tablets. It also gives me access to much more than just the virtualized desktop. It also gets me the software assurance benefits that we've just talked about, so the 24/7 support, etc., the roaming rights, so on and so forth. So there is significantly more benefits to a VDA purchase than just the VDI solution itself. It also gets me access to the additional purchases if I want to make that, so things like app fee, which is part of MDOT. So to summarise, nice little graphic down the bottom. Software assurance for Windows allows me to license the PC. It's a qualifying operating system, and it also gives you the local install rights, whereas the thin client purely allows me to access the VDI. There's no qualifying operating system required, and I don't get local install rights. And a lot of people are seeing this as a mechanism to move away from Windows XP. And obviously, the date that we have to be particularly aware of is the 8th of April 2014, where Windows XP goes end of support. And if any of you out there are actually tied into some sort of regulatory compliance that means that your PCs must be supported by the manufacturer, as soon as we go past the 8th of April, you are no longer compliant and will quite possibly be forced to move to a newer version of the operating system. And you don't have to go to Windows 8 if you want. The Windows 8 license gives you the downgrade rights to Windows 7, for example. And Environ have got some pretty good case studies around deploying this within places like the National Museums of Liverpool. Bear with me, I forgot that for a second. So, experience within that particular field is one of Environ's specialties. As we've talked about, licensing for VDI, so, the ones that we look at there is obviously the software assurance and the VDA, so this is the ability to license it depending on whether it's Windows powered or depending on whether it's non-Windows powered. The actual purchasing mechanism, so depending on what license scheme you actually want to go down, as you can see from there, we've got the Windows 8 Enterprise with software assurance available on pretty much every single licensing scheme that there is. The VDA subscription is not available under open license because open license is a perpetual licensing program only, and as we mentioned earlier on, VDA is a subscription based license. Additional licensing requirements, so the Windows 8 with software assurance or the VDA license purely give you the ability to use VDI. However, there are other infrastructure requirements and technologies required in order to provide the path to the virtualized infrastructure. So what you might be looking at is you might be looking at a remote desktop services solution, so not only providing VDI, but you might be providing RDS as well. So therefore, we would need to look at the appropriate RDS CALs. If you want to manage those, you might be looking at configuration manager licenses. And then we've got the VDI suite. Now the VDI suite gives me a quick and easy amalgamation of licenses for people that are deploying VDI solutions only. So this basically licenses me to use elements of the infrastructure to get to my virtualized desktop. If I want to use some or all of the RDS functionality, then you can't use this particular license. You have to use full RDS. Okay. So therefore you need to look at what type of infrastructure you want to deploy, and again on top of that what you might want to look at is if you want to go down the application virtualization route and deliver streamed applications, then obviously the VDA and the Windows 8 with software assurance gives you access to make that purchase. What we also have to think about though is the applications, because don't forget, we've licensed VDI, we've licensed you to get at VDI, but the actual operating system itself might still need Office. So, or other applications therein. So there are licensing requirements for that. Things that you need to be particularly aware of is if you are, for example, going to deploy Office within this particular infrastructure, you need the volume license version to be installed in that particular implementation in order for it to be licensed correctly. And obviously there are numerous applications out there that you may well want to use. So you need to look at the implications for deploying it within a virtualized desktop infrastructure. So I'll hand back to Gary. I hope that's been useful.
Yes, thanks, John. It was very interesting and informative, and it's especially a complex area, of course, that people need to get so very right in this modern system implementation day and age. So Environ specialises in providing solutions that meet our customers' exacting needs using this technology. And we very much hope that if you found this instruction useful and would like to have a further conversation, you'll be in touch. Additionally, you may like to know that we have a highly specified demonstration centre in which this and other technologies can be demonstrated, and an active programme of learning events where you will have the opportunity to speak directly to members of our engineering team and partners. Please take a look at www.environ.co.uk/events for further information. Thank you very much for watching.